All right, we'll do the magic countdown review. Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Westborough Board of Selectmen. It is Tuesday, November 17th, 2020, and our meeting is being held remotely. I will read Governor Baker's orders. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right in or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so through Westborough TV. You can watch it through cable, YouTube, or stream it directly from Westborough TV's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay. Alan, if you would work your magic as I run through the agenda and just pull that up, please. Okay, so first order of business would be discussion vote on the tax classification hearing, presentation by our Board of Assessors. At 6:20, we'll have approval of meeting minutes from October 23rd. 6:25, we'll have a discussion vote to appoint trustees to the Affordable Housing Trust. At 6:35, we'll have a discussion vote regarding the Selectmen liaison positions, if you will, and assignments. 6:45, discussion vote regarding the update of the Economic Development Coordinator job description by our town manager. At 6:50, we'll have a discussion regarding the town seal. At 7:20, we'll have a town manager report, and at 7:25, we will have issues and correspondence of the Selectmen, and we will then head into executive session to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate at 28 Indian Pond Road, 10 and 12 Mill Road, and 0 Ruggles Street off of Ruggles. Okay. So with that, Christy, correct me if I'm wrong. Do we need a meeting, a motion to have the presentation? No, we're all set. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Mr. Steinberg, great to see you. I'll turn it over to you and to lead the first. Oh, Christy, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you were motioning. Sorry. John, to you, please.
Sure. Thank you. Hello, my name is John Steinberg. I'm your Chief Assessor. Welcome to the Fiscal 21 classification hearing. I intend to present to you sort of a summary of where we're at with Fiscal 21 values, the levy, what we see coming and going. I want to recognize my Board of Assessors, Joe McDonough and Mark Silverberg, who I know Joe is watching. Mark, I think, might be streaming into the planning board meeting. Also recognize my staff, Alex Senzik, the Assistant Assessor, Liz Scher, the Administrative Assistant, Tara Damiano, all who have worked very hard through COVID-19 and the challenges the office has faced. They are assets to the community. So that being said, what is the tax classification hearing? And I shall share my screen. Where is that? Present now. Present entire screen. All right, how are we doing? Are we seeing that?
We are. If you can just go to like the presentation mode, it might, that way we don't see that sidebar.
Oh, so you're seeing, hold on one second. You're seeing the other screen. All right, 1 second.
Yeah, just start the slideshow.
Yeah, I had to move it to my other screen, so.
Ah, okay.
It's starting on that one. All right, Let's see.
And if you can't get there, John, it's fine.
No, we'll get there.
Okay.
So, check.
You could, sorry, just going back, you could vote to open the classification hearing. I'm not sure that you need to, but you could do it just to,
Okay, that was my question before.
yeah, sorry. about that.
I move we open the tax classification hearing.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right, thank you. Moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Enberg,
Yes.
Johnson,
Johnson, yes.
and Marshall, yes, 3003 being present.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Nope, that's okay. That's why we work as a team.
Okay, how are we doing now? With the
Yeah,
share?
that's great, John. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so the purpose of the hearing will be to vote to maintain a single tax rate or shift a portion of the tax levy from the residential class to commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. You will also vote whether or not to adopt a residential exemption or a small commercial exemption. That'll be the 3 votes that will take place this evening, hopefully. So fiscal 21 at a glance. So I'll walk you through quickly the Proposition 2.5 and where we stand with regards to our levy and our excess levy capacity and new growth. When we take the fiscal 20 levy and we add our 2.5% and new growth from this year, which was 2.2 million, we get our levy limit of $92,286,863. It's notable that the growth is up by $928 million in value this year compared to last. We add our debt exclusion of $912,738, which is declining yearly. And that gives us our maximum allowable levy for this year of $93,199,601. Bear with me with not rounding these numbers because it's important that I communicate to you exactly what our excess levy capacity is this year. So our actual fiscal levy for 2020, that's 2021, not 2020, even though that's what it says, is $80,987,846. So that's up 4.07% or 3.1 million over last year. It leaves us a remaining excess levy capacity of $12,211,754.51, which is up over 1.1 million over last year. And again, that excess levy capacity is taxing availability that is not being taxed this year. So there could have been raised another 12.2 million that is not being raised through property taxes. The total valuation of the town went up to $4.368 billion. Which was up 2.85%. And if you choose to adopt a single tax rate, it would be $18.54. And this rate's estimated. Sometimes when we get the final numbers into Gateway with some other tweaks that happen between now and then, it can change a penny or two. But the estimated tax rate would be $18.54. If you look below that, that gives the average single family value went up to $539,519, which was up 1.11%, to bring your average single-family tax bill to just over $10,000, $10,002.68. And one of the things that I wanted to point out here is that the levy to be defined is the amount to be raised through property taxes. So the difference this year where you see a 4% increase in the levy, but we've talked a lot about what the increase is in the total budget, and that's less than 4%. But when we talk about the impact of COVID and everything that we've gone through over the last year to project where other revenues are, you can see from this grid here that other revenues are down. And so when other revenues are down, all the rest has to be made up from property taxes. So that's why you see a bigger jump in the levy. It's not necessarily tied directly to the budget if revenues had increased, if more money had come in from the state or from other sources, that we've talked about, hotel motel taxes and permitting and other things which have been affected by COVID. So that's why you see that difference. You can see the levy as a percent of the total budget has increased, and that's simply because other revenues are down. Hopefully that will get better. We'll, get to see. My crystal ball was a little foggy on that one. Another thing to point out this year as we look at our value by class that we've talked about year in, year out, where our residential percent of that value, percent of the levy has been increasing every year. This year it is not increasing. It's actually going back the other way by 0.24%. It's not a lot, but it's recognizable only because it had been constantly going down. So when you look at the burden that's on the residential property value, property taxpayers, and the shift that could take place, you talk about, well, how much of that levy is currently being absorbed by the residential property? That percentage, that 30+%, is a lot. We're still in the top 6 or 7 communities in the state in ratio of non-residential to residential values. When you look at many towns, they're in the 85 or 90% residential value. Some, get a little closer to the 80%, but you take a town like Weston that's well over 90%. And then there are small towns out in the west that have very, low residential, but they have an energy facility, and they're the other way. But so 30% is substantial. Marlborough is just above us at 31%. They surpassed us. We were above them previously up until last year. So that's notable for this year. And you can see where the net was this year in terms of where our value increases were. A lot of that is attributable to a very strong industrial market. It is attributable partially to new growth, and we'll get to that. But the industrial market was very strong comparatively to other commercial markets. Very low vacancy, high investment potential. And so that was a big portion of it, combined with other new growth. We have a lot of good things going on in town that are non-residential. We have good residential things going on, but in terms of growth, we have a lot of non-residential. And this is just another look at that. You can see if you look towards 2013, this is the last time between 2012 and 2013 that we saw an increase in the total non-residential percentage. But the difference is, if you look at this, it was attributable to personal property. So personal property increased in that period, which offset some of the other decreases. Whereas this year, you can see the personal property value actually as a percent decreased. So the increase in that is in real estate, real property, which is significant because we all know it doesn't depreciate in the same way and is not fleeting. New growth. So new growth, as defined, is property that has not been taxed previously. So in regards to real estate, one of the substantial factors, if you look at the bar on the right for 2021 that you can see we really had a balance between the residential personal property and commercial industrial, whereas in past years, we had very little commercial industrial new growth compared to this year, which was a bigger percentage, which is great because, again, that's real property. And some of the sources of that relative to the commercial industrial, two substantial ones, are the Olympus facility that's being built, right? That was actually a lot split as well as a new building. And Astellas Pharmaceuticals, which is a little less known, but they had a TIF at 9 Tech Drive. They took that office building and built a very substantial biomedical research and development property with a large investment. And that is something that will continue to impact the growth because as their TIF benefit decreases, that net amount continues to benefit the town in the terms of growth because right now that percentage is not being taxed. And here's your average single-family tax bill. You can see we crest just over the $10,000. This year, I don't have for you other comparative communities because many of them have not set their rates yet. We're sort of we're like a week earlier than past, so many of the ones that we use haven't set their rates. And here's sort of an overall summary of all the data relative to the values, the new growth in the levy limit. You can see how our new growth has rebounded from where it was in 2017. In this section here, where it was 2.4 million, and now at 2021 back to 2.2 million. And that'll continue. I'm optimistic about new growth because there's a few things in that new growth that we have going for us with Amazon. So Amazon is not really included very much in this new growth factor because at the time of valuation, they really were still taking down buildings. They had the Q building that had been renovated that resulted in some new growth, but the total real estate value for that property had not turned yet. Now they're occupying their primary facility. We'll see a lot of that new growth in the upcoming year. Another notable thing is that both Astellas and Amazon do not have personal property within this new growth. So that's going to be substantial for 2022. It's really recognizable because I expect both of them will have substantial personal property that will be remaining. It's not because of the manufacturing type of things that they do. It's not the fleeting type of personal property where they're constantly replacing it. It comes and it stays for an extended period of time. The other thing you could point out is you can see a few years ago where we really ate into our excess levy capacity, and we're in the process of, we're rebuilding that. And here's our top taxpayers that are contributing to this. Again, you can see Astellas Pharmaceuticals is new to this list. Cumberland Farms also has made it to the top 10. As they say in my world, mazel tov to them. And then the other notable thing is Selco, Verizon Wireless, has come down a little bit. And one of the things, because they were always accountable for so much new growth and such a high value from a personal property perspective, is the change in wireless technology. They had a lot of equipment that had remained within that switch building that has been moved out. Now that the 4G and 5G have caught up with the video demands and moving into 5G, the cost structures have changed and the amount of space and the amount of equipment is changing. And Caruth, just to recognize, is a substantial heads and tails above and beyond the others. So now we get to the meat and potatoes of the classification hearing, the residential split rate. So Chapter 40, Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56 allows for a shift of up to 150% of the tax burden between the classes. So what that means is if commercial industrial was 30%, you could take 50% of that 30% and shift it. You could take up to 50% of that 30% from the residential and put it back to the commercial. I know that's confusing, but in some cases, there's some math that allows you to go beyond that 50% once you've reached it. So you will find communities that are up to as high as 175%. And you get into some real problems once you get towards that maximum shift. As you can't shift anymore, you start to really have to eat into budget cuts. So if you were to maintain a single tax rate, your tax rate would be approximately $18.54, and you can see based upon the 5% shifts how the residential rate comes down and the commercial industrial personal property rate goes up. Whereas if you did a 25% shift, the residential rate would drop to $16.46 and the commercial would rise to $23.17. And here are some examples of how that impacts the average properties. So at this point, with a single rate, you're at $10,002, and an average commercial property of 2.4 million is paying $45,600. If you went to 15% shift, the average single family would save $674, and the average commercial would increase $6,844. So there's really like a 10 times factor. And here's what you can see visually as to how that spreads. You get the larger the shift, the greater the impact on the relative values of the properties. So pros and cons, why do we shift? The state law allows us to shift. I mean, the pro is that it offers tax relief for the residential properties, very simply. It is an opportunity to put some of that burden onto the commercial properties. The cons, higher commercial taxes inhibits growth. And that is a disputed fact that people like to argue about, but it is undisputable. Astellas Pharmaceuticals is here. A primary reason when they were looking between here and Marlborough is that we have a single rate. And, obviously that might not last forever, but it is a real consideration when you have neighboring communities whose tax rate for commercial properties is $27, $28, $29, $30. That's a substantial difference in their tax bills. Higher commercial taxes can reduce commercial values. And I want to emphasize this one for a minute because the commercial market right now is really in limbo. I mean, we talk a lot in the assessing world about what's going to happen with office values or hotel values or medical facility values and the nursing homes. What's going to happen to those as we come into 2022 and you start seeing higher and higher vacancies as people realize they can work from home or people are getting laid off. And so increasing expenses on the commercial property values does decrease the value of the properties to the extent that there's a ratio of expenses to income. And then the other question is, it's allowed by law, but is it fair and equitable? I guess that's a personal question as to whether or not you think it's fair to tax one property at a higher rate than another. The next topic that we can discuss is the residential exemption. So the residential exemption, a property must be owner occupied as a primary residence. It must be applied annually. Looking at 4,695 residential properties that would qualify for this as owner occupants. The exemption is a fixed amount of a value, not a tax. It can be up to a maximum of 20% of the average residential property, not just the average single family, unlike many things. This is the average residential property that you take into account. And then the reduced value has to remain within the residential levy. So it creates a higher residential tax rate than the commercial rate. If you were in all other ways going to maintain a single rate, you would then have a higher residential rate because you have to spread that shift within the residential across all the other residential properties. And this creates a natural break point. Because now you have a higher residential property, at some point, those higher values are going to be multiplied by that higher rate. Instead of getting the value break, they're now going to be paying more. And so 16 of the 351 communities have adopted a residential exemption. If you look at them, they are towns that include a lot of rental properties and non-owner occupied properties or second homes. And that's because only the primary residents can qualify for this. And so those communities are able to give a break to their residential property, their owner occupied properties, because it's a much smaller percent of the residential market. And so here's sort of how it looks. If the average residential property, and again, not average single family, is $541,656. If you were to grant a 10% residential exemption, you'd be taking $54,166 off of the value of that 541. Okay, you'd multiply it by the number of properties available, and that would give you a total dollar amount that you would be reducing the residential property value to then calculate what your new residential tax rate would be. And you'd say, okay, well, we have a new adjusted residential value of $2.76 million. We know that because of the percent of the levy that the residential property must absorb, approximately the 69%, is 55.9 million. You then change your math and you end up with the $20.24 residential tax if you were to maintain a single tax rate and adjust and adopt a 10% residential exemption. And any residential property over $644,889 would see an increase in their property taxes rather than a decrease. I know I went through all that quickly, so please ask questions if you have. Small commercial exemption. There are approximately 15 communities of the 351 that have adopted the small commercial exemption. The qualifying properties are class 3 commercial properties. It does not include industrial properties. And they must be valued under $1 million. All tenants within those properties must have less than 10 employees. So we get a report from the Department of Labor every year of people who are registered with them that have less than 10 employees. We go through that list, we look at the buildings to where those companies operate, and we evaluate whether or not those buildings will qualify. We identified 45 properties that may be eligible for this. And again, it stays within the commercial industrial personal property levy to shift within that levy. And one thing that people point out within this is that this is really a benefit to the property owner, not necessarily the small business. Because in many cases, unless a business is occupying the whole thing, they're not paying necessarily the taxes directly, unlike smaller companies or someone that's occupying a whole property that might be in a triple net lease. So our vote summary, again, selection of a minimum residential factor of 1, maintains a single rate for fiscal 21, which would be an estimated $18.54. And a reminder, the town of Westborough has never to this point elected to adopt a split rate. Vote on whether or not to adopt a residential exemption. As I mentioned, a low number of non-owner occupied properties would shift a portion of the levy from the lower valued residential properties to higher valued, and whether or not to adopt a small commercial exemption for properties that would be under $1 million and have less than 10 employees within it. And that's my summary.
Thank you very much, John. So please keep the presentation up in case we want to refer back to the points.
Would you like a motion to start discussion?
Yeah, I was gonna, I mean, we can do that. I was going to just open it up for questions from the board first before the motion.
Okay.
If there are any. I have a couple, but I'll turn it over to you, Alan and Ian, if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions. Just a comment with respect to maintaining a single tax rate. You know, I'm aware, as John pointed out in his presentation, I know there are several towns, I'm aware of a few that had dual tax rates and are now trying to back out of that because of the impact on commercial growth. And I believe it's Milford that went to a dual tax rate and saw commercial property values decline enough that it actually, you know, backfired. And residential property owners didn't see the benefit of the dual tax rate; they're actually penalized for it. So I'm supportive of keeping the residential factor of 1 and maintaining the single tax rate.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. You know, been through this many times, and Jonathan, thank you so much for bringing us through it. Complete agreement with Alan. I mean, I think it's a number of factors. The fairness one resonates with me. We are, you know, in a great location and lucky to have the split we do. I know folks would love to see us even more balanced and more commercial, industrial, and personal property to offset more of the residential. However, those, as we saw, they pay a lot of taxes in this town. And that provides us with a lot of the quality services that we have that isn't borne solely by the residential piece. So I think we talked about this in past years. We break up the amount they're paying. It could be that, you know, when you look at that, if I remember the numbers correctly, that the residentials are basically the money that we pay there on a single tax rate pays for the schools, and the commercial, industrial, and personal property pays for everything else in this town, including fire, police, et cetera. So when you think about it that way, and the fairness factor of that, I think it just, really spells out how I think we should be, and how I will vote on this is basically maintaining that factor of 1. So the single tax rate is, to me, the correct way to do it. And, we've talked in past years too, on the residential exemption and small commercial exemption. And my personal vote and personal recommendation is that we do not adopt either one of those, that we do not adopt the exemptions, and that we maintain the single tax rate. Thank you.
So John, just a couple questions. At some point, I don't know if it's possible, certainly I'm not asking for that right now, but on that top taxpayer slide that you have, if it's possible just to sort of see personal property value as a % of their tax versus assessment, that would be, I'd like to see that if you have it.
Yeah, I certainly can. I mean, what I can tell you just looking at it quickly is that the utility, the wireless telephone, those are the two that have the biggest personal property tax. Cumberland Farms is a sort of a real blend, because they own their facility, and now are paying on the station. It's really a blend. They don't, I mean, as a percentage, the personal property is a pretty small percent. But the utility and wireless telephone are almost all personal property.
Okay.
Caruth, the residential apartments, and Estella doesn't have any in there yet.
Okay.
And the Colangelos are all real estate.
Okay.
I mean, the personal property in Caruth is negligible.
Right.
But I'm happy to get you the exact.
Yeah, that would be great. I just would like that for just reference, should we need it. And then, John, I know, like all offices, you sort of prefaced it and thanking your staff, so I appreciate you doing that in this. I mean, every year you come before us, and you take what can be really complex concepts and distill them down, so I think everyone can really understand that and present it in a way that it's easy to understand. So thank you. But I'm curious to know what % this year in your cycle are you guys, given COVID, current on receiving personal property data valuations? Has that been impacted at all?
Yeah, so our personal property, because of the timing, we get our returns. The returns are due March 1st, so we get our returns early. It did impact our inspections. I mean, a lot of what we can do is encourage people to get us back good quality data. We can walk through a business and count computers, but in the end, they know better what they have than we would know. In fact, some of those companies, I could look at the equipment and not know what it is.
Yeah.
So it's a self-reporting type tax in many ways, but we rely on good data, and then we can walk through and audit that data. So it didn't affect it as dramatically, but even now it's hard sometimes to get into some of the buildings that have low staff and get in and meet with people. So it has affected, but relative to the access of data, because of the timing, it hasn't been as dramatic as our real estate inspections. I mean, it hampered us from a real estate inspection, and we're not pushy. We take all precautions that we can with regards to COVID. We are very respectful of people's concerns. We certainly wear masks and we keep distance. We appreciate when people are willing to allow us into their home and give us space. It takes 5 minutes to let us do a quick walkthrough, make some notes, and confirm that your data is right. I mean, I tell people all the time, we're not there just to make things go up. We want to make sure the data is right. If you've done nothing to your property, it's as important as if you've done something to your property. So it's hampered us that way. We're doing our best to get as much information as we can and get back out there, but we took a few months out of the field entirely. So hopefully this year we'll be able to continue to get back on that, provided that we can do it safely and maintain, the comfort of the taxpayers.
Sure, yeah, no, it makes sense. So appreciate that background. On the small class exemption on the commercial side, you mentioned you get your data from the DOR. Is that 10 employees or 10 FTEs?
10 employees.
Okay, thank you. It said that. I just wanted to confirm that was the case. And when it says here, still sticking with the small class exemption, the valuation, let me just go to that. Thank you. Must be valued at under 1 million. That's both property and personal property?
No, it's just real estate. This only applies to real estate.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. I wasn't clear as I read that. All right. And you may have said that in the presentation. I missed it.
All right.
Okay. All right. So Alan, I know earlier you were ready to make a motion. Do you want to go ahead?
Sure. I move that we adopt a residential factor of 1, thereby maintaining a single tax rate, and to not adopt a residential or small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2021.
I will second that.
Okay. All right. Any discussion by the board? All right. And I mean, by my vote, you'll know it. I'm not going to take up airtime here, but completely agree with the comments of Ian and Alan as to my vote. So, all right. Roll call vote. Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson?
Johnson, yes.
And Marshall, yes. I don't think any other members of the board have joined us. Okay, great. Then we have 300. The motion passes. Thank you very much. And John, thank you very much. I know Syed's at the Board of Health meeting right now. He would ask you if this presentation will make its way to your section on the website, the assessors section. That would be great if it could be there.
You'll be happy to know it's already there.
Oh, there you go. You're the best.
I did it right before the meeting, knowing that you would ask.
Awesome. All right. Well, he'll be.
We trained you guys well now. That's good.
That's great. No, this is great. Thank you very much. And because I know people do look at it and they like to refer back to it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and by all means, if people have questions, they should shoot an email or call, and we're happy to help you.
Great. Okay. Excellent.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Since we took a motion to have this hearing, I'll take a motion to close this classification hearing.
I move we close the tax classification hearing for fiscal year 2021.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Seeing no discussion or hearing any, we'll call vote. Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson?
Johnson, yes.
And Marshall, yes. 300. The classification hearing is closed. Okay, moving on to our next agenda items, approval of meeting minutes, October 23rd. I have a motion.
I'll move the approval of the October 23rd meeting minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Edinburgh seconds.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or comments other than thank you, Sela, as always, keeping us current, keeping the public informed. All right. Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson.
Johnson, yes.
And Marshall, yes. 3003 being present. Excellent. Okay. This next item, Alan, you're going to introduce it and lead it. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So as everyone is aware, at our special fall town meeting on November 7th, town meeting voted positively on both articles related to the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. The responsibilities now fall to the Board of Selectmen to appoint the Board of Trustees. As stated in the bylaw and the draft declaration of trust, the Board of Trustees will consist of no fewer than 5 and no more than 7 trustees appointed by the Board of Selectmen. One of the trustees shall be a member of the Board of Selectmen who shall serve as the representative of the Board of Selectmen. State law also requires alternating terms. So initially we need half of the trustees to have to serve a 1-year term, which would run through June 30th, 2021. And the other half of trustees would have a 2-year term running through June 30th, 2022. There are no term limits for trustees at this point. So anyone on a 1-year term who is still interested in serving would be up for reappointment in June for the coming fiscal year for a 2-year term beginning July 1st, 2021. We've currently received letters of interest from 3 individuals. 2 of them are on the Affordable Housing Trust Working Group, Hank Rausch and Ed Bain. And 1 letter of interest from Leah McLean, who, while not on the committee, attended all but 1 of our meetings and was actively involved in the community outreach portion in reviewing documents and providing feedback, and was an active member. She currently, I believe, is on the capital expenditure planning committee, and she's also serving on the housing partnership committee. So she would be a good liaison between the housing trust and that committee as well. So that is where we are right now. So if there are no questions, I can make the motion. We can have the discussion.
I think that'd be great.
Okay. So I move, I've got to do this right. I move to appoint Ed Bain and Leah McLean for 2-year term to the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust, term to expire on June 30th, 2022, and Hank Rausch for a 1-year term to expire on June 30th, 2021.
And I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that motion?
Alan, just one question. I think just to make sure I heard it, you said we need 5 to 7, no less than 5, no more than 7. Is that accurate?
Correct. And so
this is 3 now. We're next going to do a selectmen's rep. So we're still looking for additional.
Right. We're hoping to have more letters of interest for additional appointments at our December 8th meeting.
Okay.
At which point the trust would be staffed to either fully staffed or operationally.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think with the moving of this meeting, Alan thought that, if we had that, 5th, but it was better to get these in and keep that open, create some visibility, and then allow for more names to come through.
No, absolutely. I just wanted to clarify, make sure I'd heard it correctly.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. And as we do this, I want to thank everyone who's been involved with the Affordable Housing Trust Working Group. It was a lot of time and effort, and it's very much appreciated.
All right.
Just a comment too, Shelby, if I can. I think I know or have worked with all 3 of those members, all of them, no reservations whatsoever. I think they're going to be great on this. I know it's of interest to each of them. They've already put in a lot of work in getting us to this point. So I'm very excited and supportive of all 3 of them being appointed as trustees.
Yeah, I'll echo that. It's, we have the privilege of seeing letters of interest and summaries of backgrounds. And when we go through this, I continue to be amazed at the talent that resides within our town boundaries of people that are willing to share those talents and expertise and passions and interests. And, with Leah and Ed and Hank, we'll leave you off the table for a minute, Alan. But we're absolutely getting that, and so happy, Ed. I know you're here tonight, so thank you for joining us. It's just, it takes a village, and folks like yourself stepping up to make that happen. This is so important to our community, so thank you for doing that. All right. With that, roll call vote. Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson?
Johnson, yes.
And Marshall, yes. And I think we're still only 3, so 3-0-0. Those appointments are approved.
Do you want me to make the next motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, I move to appoint Selectman Edinburgh to the Affordable Housing Board of Trustees to serve as the Board of Selectmen representative.
And I'll second that. Do we need to add a term end period time? Alan, we had talked about it's 1 year.
Yeah.
Given
So technically, appointment to the Board of Selectmen would always be 1 year, simply because with elections and reassignment of committees,
Yep.
That could change annually. So it would be for a 1-year term to expire on June 30th, 2021.
I will amend my motion to put that language in there.
All right, great, thanks. For a second there, I thought you were going to say Selectman Marshall. I was going to say, no, wrong.
I know it wasn't going to be me.
No, and Alan, to the same comments of the 3 appointments we just made, we are so great. I'm grateful as a board member. I've seen how hard you've worked. And I know that so many in the community, appreciate your effort and your leadership of this. So thank you. You really
Thank you.
dug in. I'm not sure how much you knew beforehand, but you sure know a lot now. So.
I'm still learning.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Okay. Thank you, Ian, for the motion. And we've got a second. Hearing no discussion. Selectman Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, yes.
Selectman Johnson.
Johnson, yes.
And Selectman Marshall, yes. 3003 being present. So appointed. Excellent. And Ed, you are here. You all set? Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Ed, for joining us.
No, this is
All right.
exciting. And let's get the rest of the trustees in there so you guys can get to work. So it's important stuff and keep it moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Not knowing if Syed is going to join us. I think the Selectmen, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but the Selectmen Liaison Program, I feel like that really has to be kind of a group discussion. It's not as effective if we just have 3 of us. So if we could just push that down on the agenda a little bit, and he joins us, then at least we can have that discussion with at least 4 of us here. You guys okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. All right. So then we'll move on to the Economic Development Coordinator job description. Christy.
Thanks. So we received the funding at town meeting to hire an economic development coordinator to sort of reinstate that position effective January 1st. And so we did provide that job description to the EDC and also to Fred as the new supervisor of that position. And so the EDC didn't have any changes to the job description, but Fred had offered a couple of suggestions, and Fred's on the call. Let me just pull that up. So, one of them is sort of obvious, changing the reporting authority from the town manager to the community development director. There's also a change to have that person be a member of a community organization. So one example of that would be the Rotary. Also, we wanted to specify the importance of that person attending the development meetings. And so that's included in there. And I think that's all of the changes that we had. So Fred's on, and available to speak to it, but it's not a lot of changes, but we need the Board of Selectmen to approve it. And once you do, we would post the job description along with the job posting, because it does typically take about two months to bring someone on board, to recruit and bring someone on board.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion if anyone wants to make one.
Sure. I move to approve the Economic Development Coordinator job description as presented.
I'll second.
Once we get off mute. Selectman Johnson.
Okay. Great. Any discussion?
As I sit on the Economic Development Committee, when that job description was sent over, before I opened it, I made a list of things that I would want to see in the EDC position, and all of them, and some others even that I haven't thought of, are in the job description. And so I think it's very appropriate, and if not ambitious, it sets a pretty high expectation. So I expect we'll attract strong candidates and end up with a strong finalists based on the job description.
Yeah, that was actually mine as well, Alan. When I reviewed it, I thought, wow, there's a lot here for one person. And so I'm sort of in agreement to approve it as presented with the understanding that there's probably some here that, I mean, everything's going to have to be prioritized because I was particularly concerned on the second page, just above supervisory responsibilities where it says supports communication between town departments. That makes sense, but then it says and/or coordinate efforts promoting events and activities throughout the town. That's just like a really broad statement. And I'm not sure that that's specific to economic development. Having sat on the EDC and being familiar with the position, I have a sense of kind of where that came from. I'm okay to leave it in, but I just thought that was broad, as well as makes recommendations for implementing new channels of communications, which involve new technologies. That one, again, if we were to have a communications director, right, Ian, you would think that some of this would fall under that person's responsibility. And maybe in time, we'll see that as we identify other positions. So anyway, those are just my two observations of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously those are within the scope, those would be directed within the scope of the community development. We typically try to keep our job descriptions really broad so that, we can create the essential functions and the responsibilities going after that. But
yeah, no, fully understand that. I just wanted to share my thoughts when I read it. I thought, my God, there's a lot to unpack here. So not a dull moment, but whoever sits in the seat. So, all right, great. We have a motion and a second. Without further discussion,
Edinburgh, yes.
Johnson?
Johnson, yes.
And Marshall, yes. All right, that carries 3-0-0. Okay.
Thank you, Fred.
Yes, thank you, Fred. Sorry.
It's okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go just back to the liaison program. Alan, can you pull up the spreadsheet? Thank you. So being that we are here, I guess I just, if there are committees that folks absolutely want to be appointed to, hang on just one second. You guys, I'm getting a call from Lee. I don't know if she can't get in the meeting. Hold on just one second. I apologize. A little awkward.
Do we have music on hold?
Alan, if you're controlling this, we can put Shelby's name down for all of the open liaisons, and then we're done.
There you go.
Sorry, guys. Okay. So yes, Ian, I heard you out of the corner of my ear that I was assigned to all of them. Thank you. No, but if there are...
You didn't hear that we already voted, so we're all done. Selectmen, Vice Chairman took over the meeting, and you just have to vote yes, okay? Because we need the...
So are there, for the three of us here, are there committees that have open seats that you're just dying to be the liaison on? That's my question.
Actually, one I wanted to throw out there. If so, as you know, I've been sitting on Country Club Operating Committee.
Yep.
And that committee is going to be changing as we move the golf professional under the Recreation Department, and they're going to move probably a couple committee members onto the Recreation Committee. So personally, I'd like to, move to the liaison to that committee, at least for the year, as we kind of transition the golf
To
club
recreation.
there. I
Yeah.
think that would be good continuity.
Okay. Yep. All right, recreation, Yan, okay.
And just so that committee, not just thinking I'm all about golf, I will liaison to all of the recreation stuff, including the golf.
Yeah, no, fully appreciate that. Okay, all right. Ian, are there any others that you wanted to make note of or comment on?
No, not specifically. I may want to see what others do. There's
Yeah.
nothing that jumped
Yep.
out. I'm absolutely willing to step in. I do think, this is a lot. I think we've talked
Yeah.
about. I think the responsibilities that are highlighted there in column G, spell out the work. But as we know in this past year of the amount of meetings we've had, taking those on, the seat responsibilities, of course, are more. Have more responsibility. Those true committee memberships, liaison, though there is an expectation. So it's just making sure that that we can handle it and handle the commitment.
Well, the good news is I think with the Affordable Housing Trust, as I look quickly down the list, we have all of the seats assigned at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys?
Yeah. No, we do.
Okay, so that's good. Alan, from your perspective, are there any others that you were hoping to align yourself with?
I'd be interested or willing to liaison with the Council on Aging.
Oh, Russell, I see. Okay.
And I'm not sure why it's highlighted in yellow, but emergency planning. Oh, Christy.
Yeah, Christy can speak to that.
There's some committees on here that I think you wouldn't necessarily have a liaison. Emergency planning is one of them.
Oh, there you go.
That committee was established by the Board of Selectmen, but it's really run by town staff and department heads and also has businesses on it. And so as a member of that committee, I would really work with that committee. So you wouldn't typically have a liaison role with committees that you don't appoint, except potentially, so the planning board and the the school committee, because those are, larger important committees. And then some of these other ones are actually ones that I appoint, but you already have a member of the board that are sitting on them. So in addition to those, some other ones that I had mentioned previously that I think we wouldn't need one liaison is the Registrar of Voters. They really work directly with the town clerk. I don't think that there's a need for you to have a liaison there. The Zoning Board of Appeals is a quasi-judicial board, and so there's probably not a need for you to have a liaison for that committee. And then also the sewer treatment plant board is a regional board, so you do appoint your representative to that board, but the board really represents 3 towns. And so we work directly with them in terms of their needs, which are typically budgetary.
Okay. So Alan, Council on Aging?
Yeah, I would do Council on Aging and Planning Board.
Well, certainly, Planning Board is kind of an interesting tie-in potentially to affordable housing work, for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
And given the affordable housing commitment, the trust commitment to addressing the needs of our aging population. Yeah, I mean, I was very interested in that, but I'm happy to yield. I think that's the right word I'm looking for to you. No, seriously.
I'm flexible. I mean,
I think that's great. Yep. No, I think that's great.
Yeah, and Shelby, I was going to add too, I think both of you said with the affordable housing, but also with the EDC and the role that the planning plays in that as well. I think, and Alan sitting as our rep on EDC, I think it's a good, I agree with you. I think it's a good fit.
Yep. Okay, great. So I would be happy to participate in the active transportation, the BPAC safety committee, and being that currently just as chair, I'm part of the trustees of Soldiers Memorials. The Veterans Advisory Board is another one that I'd be happy to be a liaison to if that was something that.
The Senior Disabled Taxation Relief Committee has not completed its work. They do have additional scope that they were going to move forward with, and they just haven't yet. But I believe Syed sits on that committee.
I don't believe he's actually on the committee.
I have to go back and look at John.
I know he proposed and ushered it through getting created, but I don't believe he's on the committee or has been attending meetings.
I don't know about him attending meetings. I had asked John if he was on the committee. I thought he had said yes. But we can look that up. Anyway, it has not completed its work.
Okay. So we can assume whether it's seat or liaison that he would want to
Continue with that.
continue with that, unless he states otherwise.
Yeah.
And Shelby and Alan, if you want, I mean, with planning board and that, I'd be happy to take on school committee as liaison, at least for the time being.
That's
Okay.
good.
Yep. Thank you, Ann. The other one that I actually found my work on Spur House pretty interesting. So Historical Commission is something I can certainly add to the list. I don't think that that's probably candidly a heavy lift, and I've worked with that group before. Happy to do it again. Okay. All right. So let's I guess I just wanted to have the discussion. I think we should probably bring this back to the full board when we're all together and make sure everyone's comfortable with it. I think we've shared our thoughts here, and if you guys are good to bring this back for a full board discussion, and we can kind of formally vote.
Fine with that.
Okay. All right.
Definitely. Yep,
All
that
right.
works for me.
All right, thanks for making those changes. So we'll have that further discussion. Great. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next agenda item was the town seal. Again, pretty important discussion here. Difficult for us, I think, to have it even as a lead-in discussion with just the three of us. I think we should probably shift that discussion until we have, or move that till we have a full board. You guys okay with that?
Completely agree, Shelby.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you want to mention what we were going to talk about?
Oh, you can for the
We were
public.
just going to talk about the process. I know
sure.
that people are sort of
Oh.
wondering why that's on the agenda.
Oh, yeah, no, fair point, Kirsty, yes. So as the public is, I think, well aware, anyone that's been following this topic, the board had previously discussed how to move forward with the requests that have been presented to the board about changing the town seal. I want to make sure everyone is clear that the town seal cannot change unless it's by a vote of town meeting. The question is, how do we get from here to town meeting if that ultimately is an article that the selectmen decide to put on the warrant? Having said that, we've talked about the fact that through citizens petition, that could be put on the warrant by an independent group if they so, went through that process. But this board had previously indicated that it would take the matter up and ultimately bring it to town meeting everything has been, I'm so tired of saying COVID. Everything has kind of been derailed by COVID. And knowing that this was going to be an enthusiastic discussion and potentially a very long one, the board decided not to put it on the fall town meeting warrant when it was initially discussed as coming on. And also, the spring and just most recently the fall town meeting, just because we didn't want to keep people inside having discussion or run the risk that people that weren't comfortable coming to town meeting would not attend and therefore not have their voice heard. So I speaking for myself, I'm very interested in a community discussion about this and bringing it to town meeting in the most prepared way to have an effective and efficient dialogue debate on town meeting floor. But I think we have work to do as a board before we can get there. So for those that are proponents and opponents from it, I want, I think, speaking for myself, I want to do it in the most thoughtful way that is also safe and appropriate to allow kind of for the democratic process to follow it. Ian, Alan, comments?
No, I agree with that approach, that we look at how we get from here to annual town meeting. There've been some, great suggestions that we've received. And I think we've got some good models for getting a high level of community input onto major topics. But it would be best if we held off that sort of planning and decision until we had a full board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in complete agreement. And I think what was laid out by the town manager, had some good ideas there, but I think it wouldn't be right if it just was the three of us. I think it really should be a full board to have that and make that decision to move it forward.
Okay. Yep. Good. Okay. So more to come. Chrissy, thank you for making that point. So for the public's benefit, more to come on this. No decision's been made. And we'll certainly, I know all of us are always available, as is our town manager, to input and ideas as to how that conversation might come forward. So if you have ideas, send it to the Board of Selectmen's email address or give our town manager a call. Happy to field those. Okay, with that, we'll move to our town manager report.
So we're working on the FY22 budget, which is hard to believe because we just finalized the FY21 budget. But we have been having budget meetings, myself, the assistant town manager and finance director, meeting with department heads this week. Our Thanksgiving hours, the town hall and the other offices in the Forbes Municipal Building will close at noon on Wednesday, November 25th, and will be closed on Friday, November 27th. The 30 Belknap Street property, we're expecting to close on the property on December 1st. The board has previously authorized Selectman Marshall to sign all the closing documents, so she'll be doing that. And the Conservation Commission is also voting tonight, I believe, at their meeting to finalize the documents. A library update. They have a Zoom event scheduled for Thursday at 7 o'clock in collaboration with the animal control on coyotes. And we actually heard from the library director today that it's been very popular. They have over 100, this says 73, but they actually have over 100 people registered for the virtual meeting. The website redesign for the library is live, so check that out at westboroughlibrary.org. The children's librarian has been making craft kits and early literacy kits that have been very popular. She puts them on the front steps each week, and parents have been submitting pictures of their kids with finished products. So you can see that on their Facebook page. The recreation department is holding a town-wide scavenger hunt, Find Townie the Turkey. So we've seen some clues all over town. So there's 7 different clues around town and lead you to where Townie is hiding. And Roach Brothers has graciously donated gift cards to be used as prizes at the end. It's not a timed event, so you can still complete it anytime before Sunday the 29th. Due to the restrictions around COVID, we're not going to hold our typical winter stroll. Instead, they're encouraging residents to decorate their homes with either lights or other decorations and then register your home with the recreation department. They're taking registrations through December 1st, and then they'll provide a list of homes, no names, just addresses for people to go driving around and looking at the lights. So there are two options, which are non-lit and lit houses, and it's in partnership with the library and the Spirit Committee. The town clerk's office has completed the 2020 elections. Now they're working on the annual census, the annual town election. December 1st is December 1st is when you can get nomination papers. And then end of the year financial reports for elected officials and other cleanup related to the election. And Youth and Family Services is putting together a Thanksgiving video for the community. Videos are due on Friday, November 20th, and details can be found on the attached flyer. So I'll just share the flyer really quickly. But this is a video that will, that people will be able to look at, or that Westborough TV will play, during the Thanksgiving holiday. All right, so here it is. And I know that it's been sent out, and we'll also post it on the website, but it is posted on the main page of the town website and will be posted with the town manager report. So they're inviting everyone to participate. And that is all I have.
Thank you very much, Christy. Okay, issues and correspondence of Selectmen. Ian.
Sure, just a couple of things. One is just to once again thank the community. I think over the past 3 weeks, but really through the pandemic, the support for really our neighbors through the Westborough Food Pantry has been amazing. The Appalachian Service Project has done a couple of food drives. We had the annual Scouting for Food drive this week. I think the last two events took in over 15,000 pounds of food for the food pantry, which is just tremendous. But it's amazing, how much is donated, but how quickly it goes too with families that are in need. And again, reminding folks that food only goes to members of our community. It services them. So don't forget them as we go through holiday season and into the winter time to keep that support there. They do a fabulous job and they need our help. But in saying that, I just want to say thank you to all the families in town. People just go above and beyond, and it's great. Second to that is just the work that was done around Veterans Day, and again, very different ways to honor. We know at our last meeting, kind of last minute, that Poppy Project, it was out there first thing in the morning. I mean, I wasn't out super early, but I was out early enough, and it was there exactly how it was stated to be. It wasn't in the line of sight, and then it was removed the next day, but it was a great seeing that. And then the flags as well that were put on the Rotary, as well as picked up with volunteers through various things. And I know Selectman Marshall helped with volunteers of the flags in the cemetery, so thank you for that. But again, it takes a whole host of people in the community to make things happen, and it was just great seeing all that. And I think just the final thing is just a reminder again of the virtual Westborough Good Scout event that will happen on Friday night, the day after Thanksgiving at 7 p.m. will be the world premiere. So folks can see that on the Westborough TV YouTube channel. It will be playing over the weekend. What Christy just brought up, Westborough TV is just, Karen and her team are just amazing in terms of the work they do, doing the work for that, doing the work for this, doing everything they do is pretty amazing. Just to highlight that, I was on the Country Club operating committee meeting last night, and they were showing the new flyover work that they've been doing for the Country Club, which of course is done through the aid and help of Westborough TV as well. So I don't know when they sleep. They seem to be doing everything, but thank you, of course, to them. And that's all I had.
Great, thank you, Ian. Alan.
Okay, three quick things. We're working to schedule the final meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust Working Group so we can approve our last minutes and officially vote to disband. That's unless, for some reason, there's a consensus that the committee needs to remain standing. The EDC is going in at the December meeting is going to be taking a step back and looking at mission and goals, short-term and long-term, to focus its work as situations have changed within town and some of the needs and priorities of the EDC. So we'll be looking at all of the EDC's programs currently underway as a starting point, and then thinking about what other focus and activities the EDC as a committee should undertake and what direction we want to head in as we move forward. And finally, just to let other members of the Board of Selectmen know, I was interviewed today by a reporter for the Boston Globe who's doing a story about towns looking to create affordable housing trusts. And the Massachusetts Housing Partnership had suggested he speak with Westborough and a few other towns about the process of, justifying it, community engagement, and moving forward with it. So we'll see if that ever makes it into print.
Awesome.
And that's all.
Thanks, Alan. I believe, Syed, you've joined us? I think, is that the Syed's 617 number, or is that someone else?
Madam Chair, it's Sheila. I had to go to off the internet and onto a phone.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry, Syed. Thanks. Sorry. Thank you. All right.
We'll just Syed.
Sorry.
At least in numerical sense.
Sorry. Okay. Just a couple of quick items on my end. Today was National Hike Day. Didn't know it. My daughter told me. And it allowed me to get outside with her on a remote learning day to enjoy and just be really, I just want to say, be thankful for all the stewardship that we've had over the many years to create open space for passive recreation. We just have some really, really beautiful spots. And I want to thank the folks that have worked and dedicated hours and time and money to making sure that happens. So continue to get out and wear your masks on the trail, but get out there and enjoy it. Alan, when you have a chance at a future meeting, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't want to lose sight of the community handbook. When you were talking about the Affordable Housing Trust and terms and term limits, it just sort of brought me back to the great work that you and Lee did. And I know we sort of tabled it for a little bit, but if we can bring that back and close that out, that would be great. And then, Christy, thank you for bringing up the nomination papers. So I feel like is there such, I don't know what a swan song sounds like, but my first term is coming to a close, as is Syed's. And so I want to encourage folks, competition is a great thing. So if you like what you see here and you think you want to be part of the process, talk with any one of us. Serving on this board or, any board it's a great experience, and give yourself a challenge and consider pulling papers, whether it's again for this board or another. But I want to encourage folks to get involved. I was talking with someone the other day, who recently is part of the composting program here in Westborough that we now have at the dump. And she said, at our Harvey's transfer station, and she said, I had some time and, life has changed. My kids have grown up a little bit and I thought I'd get involved, and I love it. And it was just like one of those experiences where I think the more people get involved, the more connected they feel to the community. And speaking of which, I want to make everyone aware that while this Thanksgiving will be very different for many, and our traditional community dinner is not taking place, there's a whole host of folks working to connect with those who may be feeling a little bit isolated. So there's an initiative called Grateful Neighbors, and the idea is that if you know of someone who might benefit from a friendly phone call just to chat and say, how you doing on this Thanksgiving, and just reaching out, they can contact the town COVID hotline and sign up for that phone call. So the phone number is 508-871-5111. And we'll have someone give you a call just to say hi and make that connection. So, so I would encourage folks, you know, it might be hard for that person, that individual, to say, give me a call. But if you know someone who could benefit from a call, drop a line. So thank you for the group that's leading that, Roberta Sylvester, Knights of Columbus team, Westborough Cares, the Senior Center, Westborough Youth and Family Services, and Westborough Connects. So, and with that, we're done with our meeting. I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
So I move that we enter into executive session. Well, let me pull up the agenda so I get the motion right. For the purpose to discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate, specifically 28 India Pond Road, 10 and 12 Mill Road, and 0 Ruggles Street off Ruggles Street.
And as chair, I declare that being in open session would be detrimental to our negotiation position, and so we will not adjourn. Excuse me, we will not return to open meeting.
Please let us adjourn.
Okay.
I will second the motion as long as we can adjourn after executive session.
Have a second.
That's my second.
Okay. All right. Roll call vote. Ian?
Edinburgh, yes?
Yeah.
Johnson, yes.
Marshall, yes. Oh my goodness. All right. Thanks. Thank you so much, Westborough TV, for hosting us. The public meeting here is open session is adjourned. Thank you.